Hello, 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 and welcome to 52 Weeks of Flow, the podcast that delves into the depth of human potential and the transformative power of flow. We're still in the beginning of the new year, and I have another amazing guest with me who's going to blow your mind. She is an intuitive guide for conscious leaders, an author, and a speaker. She has 15 plus years of deep expertise in startup marketing and simultaneously is an advanced healer and mindset trainer with certifications in 6+ spiritual modalities. Her flagship program, Sell Your Brilliance, takes individuals through higher consciousness, marketing strategies, and activation processes to confidently launch their heart-centered business. And I want to know all about that. So welcome, Michele.
Thank you
Michele
so much.
Parad. Sorry, we talked
Yeah,
about your last name for about 5 minutes, and now I completely ruined it. So, welcome, Michele Parad.
it's a perfect pronunciation. Thank you for having me, Bea. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for coming on. I think this is such an amazing opportunity, also for me to learn a lot because selling from your heart space, selling your brilliance, I think is the most important part in an entrepreneur's life, solopreneur's life, even like small business owners. So tell me all about that program, please.
Of course, absolutely. So I will start by telling you a little bit of the evolution of how I got to naming it, because it wasn't immediate, let's just say. It was definitely step by step. And I knew I wanted to help people with their mission and to define that more and to have that clarity around it. And so originally I named it something like purpose design. And so it was really about clarifying what people's roles were in a deep and meaningful way. Because a lot of people are sort of on the path and they're getting some clues about which direction to go in, but somehow, maybe due to past traumas or, other people projecting onto them what kind of role they should have, a lot of that kind of gets mixed up and jumbled in the process of creating something. So you have some aspects that are soul aligned mixed with some aspects that are not. And so, when I end up seeing people, it's like, okay, where can we peel off the layers that you told yourself about who you are, so that we can really get to the essence. And so it really evolved as I started to learn myself different tools, and it was, of course, first and foremost for myself to figure out for me how I was going to define myself. Because I really kept my worlds very separate. I worked in marketing and business development for tech companies for 12 plus years. And then I was, having this whole other world in the spiritual realm kind of at night and in the weekends. So I kept them very, very separate. And I didn't know that I could bridge them together. And so it became this process of how can I serve the people deeply that I'm here to serve, and how can I bring all of myself to a container in which I'm helping them. So it originally came from me trying to seek out different ways, and each way didn't suffice enough. There wasn't enough information there. I now, look at astrology, gene keys, a little bit of human design, definitely a lot of intuitive guidance that I'm getting to map out, someone's niche, someone's what I want to call ikigai statement. So it's really the intersection of, their prosperity along with their purpose and what the market needs as well in this current time. Because if you bring something out to market too soon, right, that's also going to fail. So you've got to think about all these intricate details as you're designing something. And so the name Sell Your Brilliance, I ended up taking from astrology. As I started learning that there's certain clues, in certain spaces that tell you a little bit about, who. So I'm here to serve primarily the essence of a Virgo and a little bit of Leo. And so these are people who want to make a big difference in the world, and also want to have a little bit of the spotlight, right? And so it's about uncovering the brilliance piece again, and that comes into a space of Gemini is like part of what's in my movement space. And so it's the Gemini is all about writing, it's all about speaking, it's all about communication. So that's where I was like, okay, what is it that's on their heart's desire to communicate? So it evolved through there. And then the sell part was actually something that I took from a place that I needed to evolve myself. And as I'm on that journey on myself, I can teach other people the same things, the same discoveries that I'm getting. And it's really about breaking down old paradigms of selling. And it's really about embodiment at the end of the day. So when you can really be authentically yourself, you become magnetic, right? At the end, we know how energy is. So being authentically yourself and also knowing what you're here for, it obviously can help you attract the right types of clients and people that you're here to work with. Otherwise, what ends up happening is you get what's called karmic clients, which happens quite a lot at the beginning stages of a business, as you're trying to figure out who you truly want to work with. So they're there to kind of teach you, okay, maybe I'll leave this part off of my manifestations of people that I want to work with. And then, I want to now work with them in a different capacity, right? So it's this interesting, I want to call it like a fermentation process that happens as you're going through different stages of your business. And it's all leading you to, everything that you want, abundance and more prosperity and love and happiness, all the good things that we want. But there's always a hero's journey that happens for all of us in the process. So yeah, but currently it's a 4-month journey. So it really starts with an exploration process. And then by the end, there's just a lot of clarity around, not just who you are, who you're here to serve, but also what are you meant to be known for? What are your known for topics? What's your core messaging? And how you're going to bring that about? What's your marketing strategy? And that's very, very customized to that individual. It's not this worked for me, so follow me type of process. It's very much, related to how they're designed, and ultimately also how you can find, your clients. You've got to be where your clients are at the end of the day as well. So that's it kind of in a nutshell, but there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. There's subconscious work that I kind of, in and when it's needed, is melded into the process as well. So
this is so fascinating. I'm sorry if you heard my dog snoring. Like he was like this real. And there she goes again, like, So for everybody listening, I'm so sorry, but for the interruptions. So this is so fascinating because, usually you're taught, okay, what's your niche? What is the people that you're going to serve? And you're like, no, I'm here to serve like a Leo, Virgo, Leo type. So when somebody comes to you, do you ask for their astrology sign first?
Mm. So it's the essence of what they're here to do, not necessarily their sun sign. So
Okay.
that's the distinction and differentiation. So I can still work with any type of sign at the end of the day, but what they're here to do and what they're here to learn is kind of in the essence of Virgo, Leo. So yeah, there's a lot of intricacies with astrology for sure.
Yeah, I have to go in there again because this is like, so I'm a Pisces.
Yeah,
And I think what's the other one? The one that is opposite of the sun sign, the moon sign. Um,
sign.
yeah, I'm a Sagittarius.
Mhm.
So how do I know what, my essence is?
Well, again, I would have to really look at your entire chart, because there's different areas within there, depending on where the signs are is it in the first house, the second house, the 10th house, all of the 10th house is like the career house, right? So there's more subtleties that you can excavate in terms of clues for your particular career. But the essence piece, it doesn't just come from astrology. These are beautiful blueprints that we can take from, but it really comes from this beautiful, I would say, interaction between your energy and my energy and the creator, and whatever ends up being downloaded in that process. And so oftentimes I can even just know the business model of someone. But then what I like to do is like kind of try to still go back and look at that person's journey and look at the other tools to just reconfirm that, yes, this is indeed, just make it kind of like a scientific process, rather than just like, okay, this person told me this. Well, I never want anyone to solely go off of anyone's, opinion or anyone's, even if it's from an intuitive guide, right? Like the person has to also come to the same conclusion. And so it's about, let's unravel the details of your story of how you got here, because all of that is part of the gold. All of that is what you're here to do, as you understand what the lessons are and understand the virtues that you gained from those experiences. A lot of that ends up being embedded in your ultimate mission and purpose. And we can have multiple missions as well. So that's the interesting part too. And I do end up working with people who have maybe three in them, and it's about the divine timing of them too. And sometimes I see things about people that are in like 10 years time, so it can also like scare them in some ways, from the perspective of they don't see themselves there yet. So it is also a process of how can we expand your view of yourself and what you can be capable of. That's, we tend to put ourselves in a little box of what we think is possible, and it's like, wow, but there's so much more that could flow through you. So why not have it all? Right? So it is about wanting more, desiring more, and being able to claim that, and you can receive it as well. So
I love that you said that, because I think this is the most difficult part nowadays. Wanting is not that hard, but then actually the receiving part, to actually be open to then have it all.
yes.
The second everything stands on our doorstep, we start questioning, am I worthy to have it? Can I do this? Is that really what I desired? Or,
Absolutely.
so how would you No, I have to start differently because I want to go back to how did you get to all of this? How did you, find astrology, gene keys? Like what
Mhm.
what led you on this journey?
Yeah. It was, one step at a time. I really started with, dark night of the soul type of experience about 10 years ago when I was working in San Francisco, and I was like, what's the meaning of life? Like, there's got to be more to this than traveling to a job and coming back and, watching TV and being kind of like a zombie every day. And I was seeing other people around me too that were acting like robots. I was always kind of pretty empathic and intuitive, that even though I didn't really know it. And so I would just see, all these people just like their light was dimmed very clearly, and they were just behind a computer screen, sort of like coding their life away. And it really bothered me. And I just felt like something was not right about everything, like the existence. So I went through this like crisis of what's going on here. And one thing led to another, where I went to an astrologer and he told me I would be a healer, a facilitator, and an educator. And I was like, I don't know, what's a healer? So at that time, there was a lot about me that was under the surface that had not yet come out. And so it was really after I hit 29 that I started to really explore myself and what made me truly happy, and what I was meant to be here for. So I then, because I had several different people who had mentioned Kabbalah to me, so I went on a journey of, okay, what is this Kabbalah? Like I wasn't very religious, so this though seemed like it was some kind of different philosophy. So I was open to exploring it. And instead of going kind of the more traditional route of the Kabbalah Center, which is where most people go to learn it, I somehow ended up in a mystery school. So I really went down the deep end in the energy realms.
What is a mystery school?
Well,
I love it. I
there,
mean, I just love it.
yeah.
It's like, oh, I want to enroll in that. What's a mystery school?
I have to say that, like anything, there's a light and a shadow side to many things. There's now a lot of people that say they have a mystery school and they don't.
Mhm.
The one I entered, I still think there were some questionable aspects to it, but it was all part of my journey. It was all part of the lessons that I learned. And so this particular school claimed that they had healings and teachings since the age of like before Christ, and it was passed down from Israel and Egypt. And, you know, these teachings had been hidden. Basically, that's why it's called a mystery school, right? It was only certain sacred people that were part of the secret society that were allowed to learn this information. It was really about the laws of the universe and alchemy and magic and all these things that totally exist, but they're kind of behind doors. So this school, and there's, again, according to them, there's like 9 schools around the whole world, maybe like true mystery schools, and they were one of the ones that opened themselves up more to the public in the 80s. And so they have different programs. This Kabbalah program really was a 10-month journey of studying the tree of life. And it was like climbing each of the circles that are part of the tree and embodying or understanding it through your life. So it would be represented in your life. The essence of, like, let's say Gebra is the circle that means being strong and, you know, putting down boundaries and saying no and, you know, putting your sword down and that kind of energy, right? So in my life, I would be tested. Are you capable of embodying this type of energy? And I would get interesting, you know, scenarios to test that. So it was wild. let's just say. But you know, so then by the end, you've really gone through this amazing cleansing process. And ultimately it's here to help us evolve and get closer to God, who is, or the ultimate, you know, essence of what we're trying to aspire to become like, and to become beautiful creators, and to become omnipotent and omnibenevolent and all these things. So for that, we need to go through lots and lots and lots of cleansing. And that's what the process kind of aspires for you to do. Unfortunately, so yeah, this is my behind the scenes of telling you how I felt about this school. You know, I do think that they went a little too far in the kind of I am God type of schooling. Or so there's like two schools, right? There is the school that teaches you I'm the master manifester and I can create whatever I want. And then there's the another school that's like, just surrender to God, you know, just surrender. And it's about, you know, what God wants for you. And ultimately that is probably what's best for you too, right? And so I do think that you want to be a little bit somewhere in the middle of that, you know, not extreme in one area or the other, because if you only surrender and kind of don't take full ownership of your life, like that's also not the best thing for you. So it's this intricate balance. And I think that school was a little bit more like, really, what I want is what's best, and it's not always the case, actually. So I, you know, learned sometimes like the hard way that you know, what I was manifesting, I became much better at it, because the more clear you become, the easier it is to bring things into your reality. Then I was like, I want to be a little bit more careful, and I want to truly co-create with spirit, not just it being like creating from my ego at the end of the day as well. So yeah, it was a beautiful process for me to get to that realization as well. And the realization that actually you don't need to be in a mystery school to experience the tree of life, because we are actually living it every day. And you can even decide for yourself, okay, you can even self-study it, let's just say, and put the intention of, okay, today I'm going to learn more about this area of my life that I feel that maybe I have a bit of a weakness or imbalance in. How do I you know, bring that a little bit more into the center? So yeah, so long-winded answer of like, but basically after this school, I just kept learning. I kept, you know, I had one person from this school that taught me a different modality called theta healing, which is working with the subconscious realm. And it's kind of a form of meditation. Again, the theta it's getting you into theta brain state, and that's where you can access information in your subconscious. And it's also where you can rewire your thought processes as well. So that's one of the main modalities that I use. But it was just my own. I'm a forever spiritual explorer. I feel like, you know, I'm still not even done. And you know, the most recent one I learned is called spiritual divorce as well, which I think it's a whole other you know, it's more about working with your body, doing breath work as well, combined with going into someone's like Akashic records and understanding where they have generational patterns that that then keep repeating in this lifetime. Like if you put on a board your family line and the issues that your grandparents had, and then your great grandparents had, you can then trace it to the patterns that you're having in your lifetime too, which is crazy. And so, but it's a very interesting mapping process along with this, somatic in the body type of breath work to release it essentially. So I've really gone and explored quite a lot just for my own curiosity. And just use different tools when I feel that it's needed. And the interesting part is that at one point when you just kind of become yourself, you don't really necessarily use one tool or another. You just start to have your own process of working with people as well. I don't know if you found that as well, but it's like, at one point I'm not following any rules of one modality or another. It just is like it becomes more intuitive of what is the information that is needed in that moment. So
yes, I completely believe in what you say. When we learn so much stuff, we integrate so much stuff, and at some point we have embodied certain aspects of each modality that we learned, and those parts then become our own modality, what resonates with us the most. And I believe that every coach, therapist, healer, everyone basically who serves other people brings their specific gifts with all the different modalities. There are so many great techniques out there, but every technique is only as good as the person behind that technique who uses that technique. And if you have really embodied it and also really truly believe in it and trust what you are doing yourself, then you can really be an amazing asset in somebody's life. And like you said, in the beginning, when you talked about the different schools, the one that says I can do it all and the one that says I can't do anything by myself. Right. I also completely believe that we're in the middle of it. There's no black and white. There's never just black and white, because we're all individuals. We're all so different. So each solution that there is always needs to have at least 5 or 6 different viewpoints. So this world is generated in a black and white way, so it's more scalable, it's easier to identify things. But I believe right now we are in this time where the black and white just like breaks open and there are more colors to it. And that is also scary for a lot of people. And they want to, press you into that black box or press you into that white box and be like, no, we need to stay here. This has worked for so long. But as we see, it didn't really work, because the majority of people is not happy with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
And
go ahead.
No, and I'm just so grateful for everybody who steps up, who steps out of their corporate role or 9-to-5 role or whatever, part they have been playing in the past, and start exploring, like you said, being a spiritual, emotional, whatever explorer, but just be curious and explore, because there's nothing that is more precious than your life right here, the flow of your life. And if you let your life be dictated by a company, time, fear, your family, then what are you doing here? Is always my question. Like, what are you doing? So sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I agree 100% with you. And I think also people get confused with what they think is their destiny or their fate, because they're faced with certain opportunities and then they're like, oh, okay, I think that was meant to be. But it's like, is that really what was meant to be for you? Like, did you actually actively create that or desire that? Because if you didn't actively desire that, unless it does spark like some, it's like some surprise that you're like, oh, yes, I feel amazing about what just occurred. If it's not, then it's not your destiny, or you can choose for it not to be your destiny or your fate. Um, and so that's also an interesting lesson as well as you go along, to be able to differentiate, right? Like that job that came to you, is that really your fate or not? You get to decide at the end of the day. And so, but yeah, I definitely came from, more of this, I guess, corporate type of background as well. And felt that I couldn't express myself in the way that I wanted. And I'm sure a lot of people feel the same way, as like you're only allowed to have a particular role. And then they just, kind of want you to fulfill that, and that's kind of it. But we're so vastly multi-talented and multi-dimensional that it's a waste of talent at the end of the day. I think that's eventually another one of my missions, I think, is to actually go back and help these businesses to really understand the uniqueness of the individuals that they're working with, and trying to actually, put them in roles that they're meant to be in, to thrive, right? And to allow them to take ownership or sovereignty of their own work and things like that. So there's more for us to evolve, for sure. But I do think that there is a potential for more conscious businesses, and that includes, building teams where you're aware of what other people's gifts are too. You're not just slotting them in a narrow thing. So it's all part of it, as well as a, entrepreneur, and you're growing your company and your team. It's like, where can I think about utilizing everyone's talent to the best ability, right? And that's again about, they all have to know themselves enough too, as well. Right? So that's a piece of it.
And that's
Is,
such a hard piece for
yeah,
to really look at who you are, also the shadow sides, because let's be honest, we all like the shiny and the gold, and this is what we put on social media, that's what we show. But to really truly accept who you are, with all the quirks, all the doubts, and all the dark, like, I put it in parentheses because I don't think that a shadow side is actually a negative thing. I think the shadow is something just so beautiful for us to learn, for us to evolve from. Because if we would only be, shiny and bright, that would be pretty boring. That would,
right.
if we all run around just shiny, then there's like no evolution, that there is no growth in a way. So we
Exactly.
also learn from the shadows of others, because they mirror something to us that we don't want to see in ourselves.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
So, yes. So please
It's a
go on. I just jump in because I get so excited about this kind
no,
of
I
conversation.
love that. It's so true. And it's a never ending process, for sure. It's like there's those memes on Instagram where you're like, so when are you gonna stop giving me a lesson? And I think it's like never, you know. But if you can, go through life sort of thinking of it more as a game, like I feel like the universe has a good sense of humor sometimes as well. Like if you can kind of laugh at the situation rather than getting angry or whatever, getting triggered, or at least stopping to acknowledge what's going on, and maybe just that will lighten a little bit the actual challenge. And if you can start to try to figure out, okay, what is the light in this situation, then you will find it, right? But if you're just wallowing and sort of staying in that dark place, it's hard to get yourself out ultimately as well.
Yeah.
So but
I want to go
yeah.
back to the beginning of our conversation when we talked about your program, Sell Your Brilliance, because I believe that the old way of selling is out. I think we're over this old way of selling. So, in your opinion, how do we best sell ourselves?
Well, again, it comes down to knowing yourself and knowing what your gifts are, knowing what you're here to offer, knowing who you're here to serve, knowing your message intimately. Because when you can convey that in a way that people can understand, right? That's where it becomes magnetic. And again, as it does have to do with the shadow work that we end up doing, because I find that as you peel off some of your darker layers, your message starts to illuminate better. It's like the words that come through are of a higher nature, or like closer to God than they were before. So the more you work on yourself, the more you get like access to the divine. And when you can again co-create, then there's information that flows naturally to you, that's only meant to come through you. And so that's the ultimate process of getting ourselves to get to a refinement of that message to a higher conscious place. And it's a process, and it's a willingness to always be iterating. So never kind of stay stagnant in, okay, I've created this website and this is what I have to say, but we're always evolving. So as you're, experiencing clients and other people around you, your perception is going to slightly change. So you're always going to want to up level how you describe yourself and what you do, and then you end up also attracting a new layer of clients and people. So it's really, at the end of the day, a desire for an embodiment practice, and that is really how you end up just energetically attracting people to work with you. So it's in the speaking, right? Like words matter, words create reality. So you want to not just write it down, you want to speak it out loud. I mean, you can, whatever platform that is, like if you're speaking through, Instagram, or if you're honestly just speaking by yourself at home, you can still create through your words. And then, things can come in the most surprising channels. Like even if you have a specific marketing strategy and that's what you like to do, like let's say you like to have a podcast, and that could have in and of itself its own purpose, but then your client could come just like from a referral, come completely randomly, or from this class that you took, or other realms that you didn't even expect, that wasn't even part of your strategy. But if you're meant to work with this person in this particular time frame, we're often divinely matched up in interesting ways. So yeah, it's not, it's never about manipulation. If you want to manipulate someone into, with words that are not authentic about what you do, because you think that people want to buy that, unfortunately, then when they come into your program, the expectations are different from what's actually occurring. And so that kind of puts a damper on your reputation. So I know that, there's a lot of marketers that like to craft things based on psychology and like, how can we reel them in, and so, but there is, when you're in pure embodiment, there's no need for trying to put some kind of facade on to get people in any longer. I think people can just feel when you're being true and authentic now. And I think more and more people are skeptical than ever about people selling things. So when they can sense from you energetically that you're really being honest, that differentiates you like 100% from everyone else. And so I think people are searching more and more for that, because they've been burned by, people who tried to, sell them something that wasn't really real, like kind of smoke and mirrors thing. So, yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. So if you could say, like, if you can give our listeners one golden nugget, like you've already thrown so much gold into this container right now, but if there's one more golden nugget that you could share, what would that be?
Let's see. Well, if you're struggling with what your next step is, no matter like what stage you're at, right? There's always the next level of where we want to go. Start by examining what you've learned. Go back and take some time to like kind of journal and reflect on, okay, what went well, what didn't go so well, and now how can I imagine something better? How can I recreate this in a way that's going to make my life easier? Because I think most of us, can burn ourselves out, right? I mean, that's kind of the tendency of most founders and entrepreneurs. So what can I do now, what can I imagine that doesn't even exist yet, but can make my life easier? And what can I do more day to day that makes me happy or joyful? And I think as you do more of those things and you discover more of what makes you happy and you embed that into your day-to-day practices, almost like a ritual in your business, then magical things can really occur and come out of that. So
that's beautiful. Yes, and that's the perfect closing sentence for us here. Thank you so much for coming on, Michele, and thank you for this really enlightening conversation. If somebody, when people want to reach you, where can they reach you? We're going to drop those links in the comments below as well, but let's hear it.
Yes, please, visit my website, micheleparad.com. It's with Michele with one L. And I have a bunch of free resources there. The favorite one is an archetype quiz. So be sure to check that out. And I'm on Instagram, michele.parad. So yeah, I'm excited to show you my world.
Thank you so much. And that's it. That's it for today. That's our show. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to another episode of 52 Weeks of Flow. I am giving you a virtual high five right now because you've just finished another amazing episode with another amazing guest of mine. So thanks again, Michele, for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It
And
was so
and if you have any questions or suggestions, then please reach out at bea@superwoman.coach or at moving_river on Instagram. You can also watch this podcast on YouTube. And yes, if you have 10 seconds of your time, I would really, really, really appreciate if you rate the show and review the show. It would mean the world to me. And we could also bring in more amazing guests who will spill the tea on all the hidden mysteries of this world with you and how to get in your flow. So thank you so much for tuning in to 52 Weeks of Flow. And until next time, keep shining, keep learning, keep growing, and keep flowing.